Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. This is the weekly news wrap up for Friday, December 15th, 2017. The WNW 313 top story. Roy Moore. Listen, I predicted he would win. I still think he did, minus all the Republican shenanigans and all the evil stuff done by both Republicans and Democrats. But the story here, Roy Moore refuses to concede as some supporters push stories of voter fraud and, listen, outright help from the court system that said that once a winner was announced, not certified, announced, they can start destroying ballots, paper ballots. But I just want to read you this here. This is what Roy said in his own Facebook page. Listen to him say it. We have not received the final count to include military and provisional ballots, Moore said. This has been a very close race, and we are awaiting the certification, I should say, by the Secretary of State. And here is why. You might wonder why. Why was Roy Moore taken out? We have forgotten God, says Roy Moore. My title on this is the GOP finally defeats Roy Moore. Listen, the GOP spent $32 million. Let's name them. Karl Rove and Mitch McConnell spent $32 million in the primary between the two Republicans, Strange and Moore, to defeat Moore, and they couldn't do it. Imagine what would have happened if the Republican Party spent $32 million trying to help Roy Moore, against Jones, who at this point right now is not certified, but supposedly has won. I told you about that last-minute court case that allowed the people who take care of the voting and voting machines and the paper ballots to destroy the paper ballots, which some say makes it almost impossible to do a recount. I think the recount is a long shot. It's 1.5%. But Roy Moore needs to get it within 0.5% to do a recount. If he does, I think he'll uncover a lot of fraud. I mean, it's not like we haven't had. Remember Jill Stein and all the recounts in the presidential race, where we found all the voter fraud. Trump ended up having more votes. Remember up in Detroit where there were more votes than registered voters, and they couldn't handle hundreds of precincts were totally out of whack. They couldn't even handle it. More fraud. Philadelphia, more fraud. The Democrats commit fraud. Remember Project Veritas, which they caught on camera, that how they were plotting voter fraud and election fraud? You think any of that happened down here in Alabama? The Republicans teamed up with the Democrats, and Mitch McConnell was willing to give up the seat rather than have Roy Moore, a Christian man with some morals that could be controlled with a control file, in the Senate. They gave up the seat. They could have spent the same amount of money in the primary, but oh no! At the last minute, they said, "Oh well, we'll put ourself behind Roy Moore." They really didn't. Then we find out a Jeb Bush, a former Jeb Bush employee, was the one that planted the stories in the Washington Post of all the allegations. Roy Moore is going to sue some of these people, especially the ones with documentation that was partially forged or forged all the way. I mean, that's what you got going on, folks. I mean, this is you're guilty. Roy Moore was guilty until proven innocent. If he sues, he's going to be proven innocent, I think. They just piled on the people, and incidentally, there was a focus group done by a pretty famous person that does focus groups, and everybody in the focus group, this is a random focus group just before the election, thought the women were all paid and they were lying, and they didn't believe it. So was there some voter fraud? I think so. Is it going to be uncovered? It may be if Roy Moore gets within 0.5%. I don't know. But this is what Roy Moore also quoted, and it was Ephesians, and it was, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." I couldn't agree with him more. This is a battle between good and evil. Mitch McConnell was willing and did give up the seat rather than have a Christian man who got fired for having the Ten Commandments in his courthouse and not going along with gay marriage because it's against he's against that because the Bible says it's wrong. But he was willing to give up the seat to somebody on the other side of the aisle, but a swamp creature. That's what we're fighting against, folks. The good news here is this is being revealed. I mean, it's so obviously being revealed. Mitch McConnell can't win another election. He can't do it. No way. I don't think Paul Ryan thinks he can win another election. You have these crazy stories coming up. Paul Ryan sees his wild Washington journey coming to an end. That's political. Then later in the afternoon, House Speaker Paul Ryan says he's not leaving Congress soon. I don't know what to believe. I do know this. This shows that the swamp is under duress. They're under duress. They're under great duress. And then you have the yellow journalism. Let's just pick up my favorite USA Today non-newspaper newspaper where, it shows all these people. I mean, he admitted to it. There's pictures of him. He basically admitted to it, said, I'm sorry, got fired. He's stepping down. He's been in rehab. Oh, he's not admitting to it. Well, what do? They lump Donald Trump with all the Democrats. These are all Democrats, folks. Americans agree misconduct must stop. This is what they're going to try to do to get rid of Trump. Now, mind you, they don't have a single idea. Have you heard a single idea from the Democrats that will propel us forward as a nation? No. Donald Trump, he was a Nazi. And now he is back to being a misogynist. That didn't work during the campaign. He's back to being a nasty misogynist, a nasty person who assaults women, which that did not work. I don't think that will work. But not a single idea, because their ideas involve Luciferian principles, abortion. I love that when they call, baby body parts tissue. You mean like eyes and kidneys and lungs and skin and things like that. Jones, he's for pro-abortion. I think he's for full-term abortion. You can't be a Democrat without being an abortionist. But therefore, the New World Order, therefore the gutting of America, therefore America to be a second, class, third world country. They're not for America. They're for the Trans-Pacific Partnership. They're for these terrible trade dealers. They're for the Paris Climate Accord that allows India and China with, 2.7 billion people to continue polluting until 2030. And while America is gutted and paid for it, that's what the Democrats have. That's what they have. I think what happened down in Alabama is a little bit of a psyop with Roy Moore is a pedophile, which he's not, and at least two of the most serious women have major holes in their story. And if he sues them, he could spend the next 2 years basically clearing himself and coming back around and running again. But I digress. He's not out of it yet. He says he's not out of it. On top of that, what's being revealed is this deep state, the swamp. In Congress, finally, Republicans are in there, and here we have, Justice Official. This is Rob Rosenstein right here. He's the number 2. Jeff Sessions recused himself, which is ridiculous, and he's saying that he defends the Mueller probe into the probe that's gone on for more than a year, without a single scintilla of evidence showing that there is Russian collusion. They just want to remove Donald Trump from office. He's loaded up his crew with a bunch of Democrats. With Rob Rosenstein said, well, that's okay. They just can't have a conflict of interest. Well, listen, the people that were in the Justice Department and in the FBI basically covering massive crimes of Hillary Clinton, as I've said before, I'll sum it up. She had private servers to hide the fact, unprotected servers, which was a huge national security risk, unprotected servers to hide the fact she was taking treasonous bribes in the form of donations to a global charity fraud. And they covered that up. The FBI and Justice Department covered that up. Now, listen, forget about all these texts and all that. Well, don't forget about it, but it does show bias. It does show they had a plan B in case Donald Trump won. And this is what I want to talk to you about, that this guy right here sat in front of Congress, Rob Rosenstein, and he said, I can't talk about that. Yeah, I know the answer, but I can't talk about that. And here's the simple question. And Rush Limbaugh brought this up on his show. He says, can you imagine that they had to make something up for Donald Trump? Can you imagine any one of these other swamp creatures making it? that they would find something in their past that they could, throw them in jail for. But with Donald Trump, they couldn't find anything, so they made up something. And we're back to this dossier, with this so-called dossier. Some people call it the P dossier, where whores were peeing on beds with Donald Trump watching on and all that. Totally bogus, fake, 100% fake. Not a single bit of it has been proven. It was made up. And let me tell you, the Justice Department, at least a wife of a high-ranking Justice Department official that was demoted, was working with Fusion GPS to develop this. Hillary Clinton and the DNC, and Hillary Clinton ran the DNC, paid for this dossier. The FBI apparently struck the FBI agent that's also been demoted, used it, and this is the big question. This is what Congress is asking. And Jim Jordan thinks this is exactly what happened. You know what I think, Jim Jordan? Congressman Jim Jordan says, I think you use this as the basis of your investigation in the Mueller investigation. That's what I think. That's what I think. You used this bought and paid for phony document, paid for by Hillary Clinton and the DNC, massaged by the Justice Department, and used by the FBI to get FISA warrants, and used it as a basis for a phony investigation on Donald Trump. They had to make it up because they didn't have anything, because Donald Trump is a threat to the New World Order, a threat to the Luciferians, a threat to the deep state, a threat to all these people, because he's America first and doesn't want to grind America into the dirt. That's what you should focus on. Rob Rosenstein would not answer questions about the dossier, because that's what they used to get a phony investigation, and yet it continues. Jeff Sessions, what are you doing? You recused yourself, unrecused yourself. This was a document, a phony, completely whole cloth, bought and paid for $12 million phony document used by the Justice Department and FBI to gin up a completely, totally false investigation on an incoming president. That is the real story, and it's being exposed. All these people that were exonerated by the crooked FBI and Department of Justice officials, not all of them are crooked. Now, the FBI, the rank and file, not crooked, but high-ranking people at the Justice Department and FBI committed crimes in obstruction of justice, covering up major crimes of Hillary Clinton and crew. And these are the same people that are turning around and charged with investigating Donald Trump and using a completely phony document paid for by Hillary Clinton. It's unbelievable. The good news here, it's being exposed. This makes Watergate look like a squirt gun fight. It involves former heads of the FBI, secretaries of state, presidents, heads of the DNC, heads of the FBI. It's unbelievable. And major top members of all these people's staffs. It's unbelievable corruption at a level that America has never seen. Watergate is a nothing burger story compared to this. No money changed hands in Watergate. There was zero national security implication in Watergate. This is completely the opposite, and there was no treason involved in Watergate. Here, their national security involves obstruction of justice. There is a treason, absolute fraud, a cover-up, wrongdoing. It's unbelievable by multiple people over multiple years. This is unprecedented in American history. And which makes this very nervous because, in the event you're losing at a card game out in the old West, what do? You turn the table over. You start a war. This is a little bothering. U.S. F-22s intercept Russian jets over Syria. We're flying over Syria, folks. We're not invited to Syria. They fire warning flares. It's reported that Russia is removing troops from Syria. That's expensive. We also have new information coming out about North Korea that they may have flashed a picture of their nuclear weapon. Number one. Number two, Lindsey Graham says the next time they launch could be a 70% chance we go to war. I don't know. But things are not doing well. But in terms of the political situation, geopolitical situation, is the economy getting better? Yes. I think it would have gone into free fall had Hillary Clinton gotten elected. I think the only reason why it's doing as well as it's good is because the hope and the regulation cutting and the efforts on Donald Trump's part. I'm for him. We have a lot of debt, but I'm for him. This is why they're working so hard. GOP tax favors the wealthy because that's the negative spin on it. It really does. And the wealthiest are the people who pay the taxes in this country. 47% of people don't pay taxes. We do have an agreement, although this is kind of bouncing around a little bit, but I think a lot of people want this to work. Gregory Mannarino said a while ago that the Republicans agree on a tax deal. Marco Rubio's holding it up. There's another one or two senators that are question marks, but I think at the end of the day they're going to get this done, and they need to get it done. We've heard all this good news about GDP at 3%, unemployment at I don't know 20-year lows. You've heard about all the consumer optimism, all that. But I want Donald Trump to succeed, and I think we would be in a full-on depression if Hillary Clinton would have been elected president, and we're not. But shadowstats.com, I just say that it's the real numbers. It's the unmassaged real numbers. And this is the latest from Shadow Stats, and I just pulled this up with all the advent of all this good news. Here's the Shadow Stats. Fundamentals still point to a weakening economy. This is according to John Williams, economist at shadowstats.com, the guy that gives you the real numbers. Prospects for, and listen to this one, prospects for U.S. economic and financial market activity continue to darken, faltering. Real consumer credit and earnings do not support the purported boom that you've been hearing about. And this is another little bullet point I pulled out of his most recent report. And his reports are very detailed. These are just some bullet points. And you should become a subscriber if you really, really want to get deep dived into the economy. Fourth quarter 2017, real average weekly earnings were on track for a second consecutive quarterly contraction. That's what's going on with the economy if you strip away all the gimmicks that make things look better than they really are. We're still north of 20% on the real unemployment, underemployment. We're still up around 5, 6, maybe 7% for inflation. My mother just got an increase in her Social Security. She got an extra 50 cents a month. I mean, yeah. Gregory Mannarino has been talking about, he was on this week, and incidentally, he said that the Fed would raise rates, they'd be forced to. Now think about this, they're raising rates with real declining data. They know what Shadow Stats knows. They know what Shadow Stats knows about the prospects for the weakening economy. They know that. Mannarino said, listen, they have to. They had to do it. It was a matter of they just have to do it because of a respectability for the dollar, and respectability for them, for the PSYOP, for the head game. They got if they didn't raise rates, say, whoa, I thought the economy was doing well. Why aren't we raising rates? And so Mannarino got that right. Jim Rickards said they wouldn't raise rates because the economy was faltering. Well, they're both kind of right. Rickards is still right that the economy is faltering, at least according to John Williams. But Mannarino was right, was that they're going to be forced to raise rates for credibility. And he says there's something else they've been doing, and he says, look at right here. And he sent me this chart. He went over it with me. He says right here, right there. That's the opening in the morning. This is the bond market. Boom, 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 going down. I mean, getting killed. And he says, and this is his words. He says they savagely bought the bond market. Boom, 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 boom. They just kept buying the bonds. They bought everything with an interest rate on it. They just bought the heck out of the bonds. Now, usually that buoys the stock market. But what happened? The stock market opened up, about 90 points roughly this morning, and then it closed down 75 points. But it didn't work to buoy the market. They bought the bond. Somebody, he said, was in there buying. He said, this is the chart that shows it was crashing. If they wouldn't have bought it, it would have continued to crash. Which means rates are spiking, which means interest rates are going up, bonds are being devalued, and they bought the bond market. Remember what Mannarino says about the bond market. He says, that's the real deal. Watch the bond market. And that's what he watches every day. And he says, if they wouldn't have stepped in, we'd have had a bond crash and a stock market crash. And he said, watch this, the two twin towers. When the bond market and the stock market both crash, and they can't prop up either one of them, boy, look out. And he said they propped up the bond market, but they couldn't prop up the stock market. There's a lot of negative people out there about the stock market because what they're doing, they will not allow a correction. And Mannarino says that they took a monumental problem and they made it monumentally worse. That's his quote. In the bond market by not allowing market forces to set prices. And listen, they have so many derivatives in the trillions of dollars, and this thing has been so distorted that if they let natural forces, loose, you'd have an unbelievable crash. And I don't know if they're going to be able to keep a lid on it. I know I've been saying and other people have been saying for years. Now, some people, Catherine Austin Fitts says, slow burn, it's not going to crash. Other people say, I don't see a crash. But many other people are worried because and the reason why they're worried is because they're not taking into account all the massive manipulation, bond buying, intervention, the massive amount of fraud and crime being used and employed to prop up the markets. I mean, under normal market scenarios, this thing would have died a long time. It would have died in 2008. It should have died in 2008. We would have been better off if we would have just let it all crash in 2008, and we'd be on our way to a real economic boom at this point. You could count on the prices of stocks and bonds and money and gold and whatever to be real if they would have just allowed it to correct, but they won't do it. I love this. A monumental problem in the bond market, and it made it monumentally worse. And here's another thing that I wanted to bring out, and I've been watching this myself because Mannarino was talking about the yield curve. The yield curve, not more than 3 or 4 months ago, I was watching between the 10 and the 30 was about 60 basis points. So, now the 10-year is a 235 or something like that, and the 30-year bond is a 271. So now we got 35, 36 basis points. It was hovering at 60, then around 50, then around 40 for the longest time. Now it's dunked under 40. It's flattening. And whenever the yield curve flattens, it's a historical negative indicator for a coming recession. It is one of the 99.9% indicators when the yield curve flattens that it's signaling a recession. Now, will this tax deal put it off? Could it juke the market? Yeah, I guess it could. Yes. And now you know why they're working it so hard. But here's a normal yield curve. Down here was short-term money, and up here is longer-term money. And it's like going to the bank and going, let's see, I'd like to have a 6-month CD, and they used to tell you, well, that'd be 3%. Well, I'd like to have tied up for 2 years. How much would that be? Well, that'd be 5%, right? If you tie your money up. But here's what we have today. A flattening yield curve. And I just scribbled this on the bottom here. The 2-year Treasury is 1.81%. This is the 2-year Treasury. That's tying your money up in a Treasury for 2 years. The 30-year Treasury, and please note, is 2.71%. The 2-year at 1.81, the 30-year at 2.71. Folks, that's 0.9%, 90 basis points difference between tying your money up for 2 years and tying your money up for 3 years. Now imagine that. I go into a bank and go, hey, I'd like to give you my money for 2 years. How much will you give me for that interest rate? 1.81% today. Oh, okay, great. Well, how much if I tie it up for 30 years? We'll give you an extra 90 basis points, 0.9%, not even another full percentage point to tie your money up for 30 years. Do you understand what kind of trouble that is signaling? It's signaling huge trouble, which is why I think the Trump administration, and listen, Donald Trump went to Wharton Business School. He's no dumb guy. He knows the real numbers. And he can put that off if he gets this tax package through, which, by the way, is a twofer. He mentioned something. I was watching him talk on television saying, the tax package is more than that. There's some other things in there, like the elimination of the Obamacare individual mandate, where you get taxed or fined. You are fined for not buying health insurance. That's going to go away. Do you know who pays that tax? Poor people, Democrats. They are the ones that pay that tax. So that individual mandate is going to go away. If they can only do away, I hope they do away with the 40-hour, the 29-hour a week work week as well. So poor people can just work 40 hours instead of trying to get 2 part-time jobs. But that's the extra additional benefit of that. But the real behind-the-scene numbers are signaling intervention in the bond market, according to Greg Mannarino, is signaling danger in the markets. And I don't want you to be fearful I want you to be informed. I want you to be able to make informed decisions. Decisions. You know that the dark powers here that we're fighting against want you to feel helpless, and there's nothing that makes people feel more helpless than them not knowing what's going on. They want you to feel like, oh, well, you're helpless to do anything. We're in total control. They're not. They're not in total control. And you being informed helps put you in control. Helps you to call BS on the BS. And I'll tell you how you can be in more control. And that is this whole social justice. You know, I love to play, let's call it what it really is. Social justice, Marxism, communism. It's like when the abortionists say, it's tissue. Oh, no, it's baby body parts. It's eyeballs and lungs and hearts and skin and stuff like that. It's, it's things like that. Call it what it is. Tolerance means really intolerance. Pro-choice means pro-abortion. It's progressive, again, Marxist, communist. That's what they want to take us to. Where you don't have the right to bear arms. There's no constitution. There's no free speech. The only free speech that's tolerated is what they approve of. But here's how you can fight back. Don't play ball in their system. Like this one right here. Fan sues Saints, wants season ticket refunded over NFL players' protest. Really? And here's the theory here, and it's a pretty long story, but this is what I gleaned out. If you sell tickets to a gaming event for entertainment, you should not be allowed to turn it political. Robert Goodell, I think his name's Goodell, the head of the NFL, got a contract extension. Now let me see here. Here's what he did for his contract extension. Ticket sales are imploding. You got people like this that want their season ticket money back. You have paraphernalia and merchandising that's also, sales are imploding. Ratings are imploding. And he gets a 5-year contract extension. The NFL thinks you're too stupid to figure out that they're using this as a wedge issue to try to cram this communism and social justice by players that are making $1 million, $2, $3, $4, $5 million a year for catching an oblong ball and running it into a square end of the field. And this is how you can fight back. Don't watch this stuff. This year's Super Bowl, I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to watch it. I hardly even go to the movies anymore because I just about hate every star that's out there with their big yapper open, trying to cram their socialism and their communism and their tolerance down my throat. Don't bite into it. I want you to be informed. I'm not trying to bum you out. When you're listening to the mainstream thought-shaping media, putting Donald Trump in the middle of a bunch of professed self-admitted sexual abusers. Oh, and incidentally, we don't have Bill Clinton in there, do we? And Hillary Clinton, who covered for Bill Clinton all those years, and now they're Bill Clinton. Yeah, they have to, after decades of putting up with that and defending that. Oh, he's terrible. He should have never done that. I mean, who are they trying to kid? They don't have a single idea that will help you and your family. And black people, I don't understand why they would vote for a Democrat. As Dr. Ben Carson says, who runs HUD, he said, they're in the campaign, he said, they're treating black people like a pet, patting them on the head. Here's a cookie. That's what Dr. Ben Carson said. I couldn't agree more. They are at the bottom of the barrel. At the bottom of the barrel. They're helping refugees, all men, Muslim, which that's come to an end, and they're helping illegal aliens, undocumented, above actual citizens of this country who happen to be black. I don't know why a black person would ever vote for a Democrat. Thank you so much one other last thing. I want to talk to you about YouTube and about what they're doing. I put a disclaimer up for Dane Wigington, and nowhere has it been more overt than Dane Wigington from geoengineeringwatch.org. Here in North Carolina, I came out, and the sky was striped with a pattern of chemtrails, not contrails. That's a lie. Of geoengineering, high solar radiation management, high altitude solar injection, whatever you want to call it. Those are the real scientific terms. And he came on. He got 30,000 views, 33,000 views, which I think is a total lie. At one point, he had 800 comments. This is early on, the first 24 hours. 800 comments. I came back 45 minutes later, poof, there was 200 comments. And why am I telling you this? If you're commenting on the site, and I would suggest you comment on usawatchdog.com, the only comments I take down are people who drop the F-bomb and cuss and say anti-Semitic and racist, nasty racist stuff. And if they come on with stuff that's a total lie or trying to sell you, whatever, gold futures, stock futures, Bitcoin, whatever scam, I don't allow any of that stuff on. But I don't take off comments by the hundreds just because I don't like your opinion. And so if that is happening to you, that ain't me. Now, they also do put a lot of comments that they put on for me to review, and I don't even understand why they do it over and over again. This guy's okay, but boom, that's okay. That's okay. That's a good instructional link. It proves what they're saying. That's okay. Same people over and over again. They try to take off the site. They try to take off YouTube. Terrible on YouTube. They demonetize the things, and then they put the monetization back on. They take away the comments. They jury-rig that. They take away views. Greg Manarino's video had 44,000 views. 10 minutes later, he comes back and said 36,000 views. He said, dude, calls me up. Dude, they just took 8,000 views away from you. This is the kind of stuff that's happening in the background. But just to let you know, there are massive amounts of comments being discarded. I'm not doing it. That's why you should just comment on usawatchdog.com in the comments section. But you can also comment in the YouTube section as well. But if your comment disappears and you think, wow, I didn't really say anything that wrong, that's the reason. It's a YouTube function. Thank you for supporting usawatchdog.com with your comments and your donations. That helps us out. And remember, fear not. Prepare yourself mentally, physically, above all, spiritually. Fear not. God the Father and His Son, Jesus Christ, are firmly in control.